Welcome to DIY is my happy place. I'm Amy and today we're going to be making Grinch gnomes. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that we can make this fantastic Christmas ornament. So let's have some fun. To start off, I always like to get as much as I can from the Dollar Tree, and so I got me some twine and some bells that are going to be perfect for the embellishments on the hat. Then I also picked up 4 easy seal containers, and I'm going to be using my unicorn spit, not from the Dollar Tree. You can order this online and I'll put a link below. And then also some wooden beads. You can get those on Amazon or Walmart or other craft stores. I'm going to fill the holes of the wooden beads with wood filler so that they'll be completely round, because this is going to be for the nose. Now, I always like to have the gnome noses to be quite large, actually. I always think of gnomes as having large noses. So I'm using a fairly large bead, and I like to use the wood putty because I want it to be paintable. Now, I'm obsessed with gnomes, and I actually love these Grinch gnomes, and I'm going to be making quite a few. I'm going to decorate a tree, or possibly I will put them on treat gift baskets that I'm going to give out to neighbors. I don't know, we'll see. There's just so many different things that you can do with these. So I'm making quite a few. I'm going to go ahead and putty quite a few of these beads so that they are ready to go, and I can make as many gnomes as my heart desires. Now, a lot of these bells came in one package, so I'm going to do a bunch of the bell embellishments as well. Now, in order to do that, I just take this twine you get from the crafter's corner and tie it into a bow. And it really is simple. Now, I do want to make sure that the legs are quite short because it's going to go on the hat, and I don't want it to overpower the gnome. But rather than trying to tie the beads into the bow, I'm just putting a little dab of hot glue onto the bow and attaching the bell. So it looks like it's tied on, but this is much faster than tying a bell into a bow. And that's what the embellishment's going to be. So since I know I'm going to be doing a lot of them, I'm going to go ahead and get a lot of these prepped. Boom! Look at that. Just like that, I have a bunch of bows done, and I'll just set these aside along with my beads that are now completely ready to be painted. Now, unicorn spit is a paint that I'm going to be using today. You could use really any kind of acrylic paint. I did try to do it with, what's that other, tempera? I don't know what you call it, paint. I picked it up from the Dollar Tree, and the paint just really wouldn't stick to the wood. So that's really meant for posters and paper and whatever. So acrylic paint is better, or in this case, I'm using unicorn spit because that is something that I already have. Now, this is something that my sister taught in last week's tutorial about putting the paint in and then just shaking it up for the beads. I cannot believe this is life-changing. I had never learned this until last week, and I've painted so many beads over the years, and it takes forever, and you're always having to turn and you're missing spots, and here this can be done in less than a minute. Why did I not know this before? I am not sure. So I went ahead and decided to add a little bit of water so I can just really stretch out my paint and see if that's going to work. And in fact, it seems to be doing just the ticket. Now, I know my sister said the best thing to do is to put it in twice, to paint it twice, dry it, and then get a second coat. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, when she was doing it, the beads were kind of popping off the plate, so I decided, hey, I'm going to put them in a box so they don't pop off the plate. Well, as you'll see, I sped this along because it was an epic fail. They were just getting stuck on the corners in the box, and they were getting gouged up, and the paint was no longer even. And let me just tell you, my sister knew what she was talking about when she put it on the plate. the best thing you can do is just put them on the plate so they're just rolling around, and being able to get dry, and then there won't be any little marks on the beads. And then you take a hair dryer or a heat gun and just let them roll around and roll around. Now this is actual time. I didn't speed this up, and I wanted to be able to show how easy it is to just dry those beads. So the other thing is, it doesn't take that much paint. I was just amazed. Now I have a lot of beads to do. I was amazed at how little bit of paint you can cover the entire beads. It's just this, like I say, if you do anything with coloring beads, this is the only way to go. So here it is, without being dinged up by the box. And I'm just going to leave the paint in the bottom of the container so I can do some more of these wooden beads. Put this on the plate, and then before it dries, you start drying it with the hair dryer. Now, if you were to just leave those beads sitting on the plate like that to dry, then it's going to leave a mark on them. And so that's what the trick is to just kind of be scooching them around as you're drying. And now that I actually know this technique, I'm so thrilled, because I really do a lot of decorating with wooden beads, and now I can change the color so easily. I've tried spray painting them. Yeah, like I say, I've spent a lot of time trying to get the beads right, and now I know this trick. Any color of paint that you have on hand can be on beads lickety-split. I can't wait to do gold beads and silver beads and different things for my holiday decorating. I might even trim my tree with them. But look how fun it is. It's so therapeutic to just be sitting there with the hairdryer and then watching those beads dry before your eyes. And it really doesn't take very long. Now, if you had a bigger container, I just grabbed these little containers to put the beads in. If you had a bigger, Tupperware, sealed up container, you could do a lot of these beads at once. But it really went pretty quick. I mean, I did all the beads in about just over 5 minutes probably. So, and it really was fun. Just the shake, shake, shake. It was really fun. So, okay, enough about the beads. As you can see, this is really a great asset to creating a gnome. Now, the thing about unicorn spit is when it dries, it dries dull, where acrylic paint will dry clear looking. So that's the difference between which type of paint you want to use. As far as my gnome noses go, I actually prefer the dull look, so that's perfect. But it's definitely worth getting all the prepping done ahead of time, and then you can get going on your gnome. Now, let me talk to you. I have 2 different ways that I'm going to show you how to make this Grinch. Now, this fur, I was having a hard time finding Grinch fur, and I ordered this off Amazon, and I have Amazon Prime, so I was so excited for it to get here. I didn't really pay attention to the size, and this is what size came. And that amount cost me about $13, $15. Then I went to Walmart and I found some fur that was white that I got an entire yard. All of this for $13 for the same price. So the fact that it wasn't colored is what makes it so much less expensive. I'm like, okay, I am going to color my own. I went everywhere. I went to Hobby Lobby. I went to Michael's. I was trying to find Grinch green fur, and I just couldn't find it without breaking the bank. So I am going to show you the second way to make a Grinch gnome, and that is coloring your own fur. So I'm just going to cut off a little piece here to show, and I will only color the fur as I go. But if I was going to be doing a great big craft, say for a youth activity or, something, and I wanted to have a lot of the gnome fur, I would go ahead and just color big chunks of this and save a ton of money because it's really easy to do. And I'm going to show you how. Now, the first thing, again, I'm going to use my unicorn spit paint, and the green that I had for the nose is a little darker than what I would want for the fur. So I'm going to use some yellow paint that I also have, unicorn spit, and make it a little bit more limey color. But really, if you were to order unicorn spit, you can get it exactly in this green how you want it. I'm just really trying to use what I have on hand. So, or if you were getting acrylic paint, you can get the Grinch green paint, which is fun. But definitely for my dark green paint, I need to add some yellow to lime it up. I am going to speed this part up because you don't need to see how I stir paint. But I just wanted you to be able to see that, you don't always have to go out and buy a brand new paint to get the exact, color that you want. You can mix a little bit. Now, I tried painting this onto the fur, and it pretty much just created a big mess, and it was leaving a lot of splotches. So I definitely suggest that you put it in a bucket. I got my handy ice cream bucket here, and I'm going to pour that paint. Now, I just have about 1/4 of a cup of paint that's already been mixed with water, with the green paint and the yellow paint. The Grinch paint, so to speak. And I poured that in and then added between a 1/2 cup and a cup of water. So it's not a lot of paint. And then I just smush it around. Now you definitely want to wear gloves because it's called unicorn stain for a reason. It will stain your fingers. So, and then once I get that all the way in, I go ahead and wring it out and lay it out to dry. And then that fur is going to be perfect for unicorn. Why am I saying unicorn? For Grinch beards. And that is the way to get your Grinch green fur on a budget. Now, I love this quote from Dr. Seuss. Maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. I'm going to create a plaque to go with this that I will hang by my Christmas tree. And that's going to be next week's post, how to make a plaque with just printed paper. But I will put some links down below. I made some templates for the beard and for the hat so that you don't have to try to figure out, now, what size was it and how did you do that? And the links will be below. They're free. You can just go get them and then you can print these out. I just printed them on cardstock. You could print them on regular paper and then outline them on cardboard or some sort of, solid board for behind your ornament. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing with just cardstock. And because it's kind of flimsy, you do have to put a pretty good amount of hot glue, and I'm going to show you that. I also used that same Dr. Seuss quote, and I made some little cards that I can attach to treat bags or treat boxes, wherever I might put these gnomes. And I will have that link below as well. Now we're going to get out all the supplies that I previously got prepared for making gnomes, and now you're going to see, if you have your prep done, you'll see how fast the gnomes can come together. And this really could be a fun group activity, or for a party, a Christmas party, or a family activity around Thanksgiving or something. It's really could be a lot of fun if you had all this prep done, and then people can assemble them fast. Now here's the other supplies that you need. This yarn is great, big and fluffy, that I got from Walmart, and the cotton ball, they're not cotton balls, but the white palms. And then I picked up a couple of the felt hats, Santa hats from the Dollar Tree. I think you can get those at Walmart too. And I'm going to use that fabric for my hat. And I found that it was cheaper just to buy the hats than to try to buy the felt fabric, because it's that furry felt. So yeah, I'm just recycling hats. Now this doesn't look exactly like the triangle that I have, but it will work. The main thing is, now on the gnome ornament that we did last week, that my sister did, you could wrap this around this triangle pretty well because we were using flexible socks. But with this felt, it's not flexible. So you do have to have a larger cut out piece. I'm going to use the banker's twine to make a loop for hanging the gnome from. Now you could use just the twine that we did with embellishments too, but I'm going to go ahead and use the baker's twine since I had some, and this I got from the Dollar Tree. So I just cut off a bit of a loop, and we're going to glue that down before we finish gluing the felt. And so it just needs to be kind of in the upper center part of the hat. And so this just really comes together fast. Now, imagine that you're teaching a class with 20 youth and you're showing them how to do this. You can see how this really would be easy. My suggestion is if you were to do a gnome class where you're teaching a lot of people at once, just invite everyone to bring their own hot glue gun and extension cord. And then it would be very easy to supply all the rest of the things. And it would be reasonable by the time, especially if you dye your own green, you could definitely make these for, I don't know, I'm going to guesstimate about $1 a piece. So not going to break the bank. In fact, it might even be less than that. I'll have to try to calculate that out. But okay, then I'm going to trim my felt. Make sure you don't cut the paper with your good fabric scissors because they will know. You want to keep fabric scissors sharp, so don't use paper. Okay, now I'm going to do my gnome beard. Now you want to have the bottom where the fur is hanging down some. You don't want to trim that off, and you always want to cut from the back side so that the fur doesn't get cut, just the part that attaches the fur. And so this is my very expensive Amazon fur that I'm going to use every single morsel of it on gnomes, since it cost me, like I said, $13. So actually that would be, I think I get about 4. I might be able to get 5 out of that. That's pretty expensive for me. I like to be able to make a gnome, especially when you're talking about an ornament. I don't want to be over $1 a piece, certainly not $4 a piece. So yeah. Anyway, it might be that it's this time of year, that color is hard to come by. I don't know, but here's what I do. Okay, once it's cut out, I give a generous amount of glue because the glue is going to help keep this steady because my paper is just cardstock. Now, if I had ample amount of fur, I would go ahead and cut out 2 sides and glue both sides. But since this is quite expensive, I'm going to use strips and pieces for the back side once I get the 4 gnomes made. So I'll show you the back, how I do that in a minute. Now this fabulous yarn that I got from the Dollar Tree, I will put on the bottom of the hat to trim it out. And I don't think I've ever seen this kind of yarn before this year. And that is going to be a go-to for a lot of crafts in the future, that's for sure. So I'm just going to hot glue that to the bottom of my hat. And this is starting to come together. Again, I mean, you can make, once everything is put together, you can make these gnomes, you know, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes a piece. I'm sure I could do probably 5 or 6 an hour. So it's not Speedy Gonzales, but it's certainly not like a regular gnome that takes hours to put together. Now the top I'm going to bend over so that it can crinkle a little bit, even bending that cardstock. And I'll put a little dab of glue on the very end and get my white palm for the tip of the Santa hat. And you can see this is an easy, fun way to make a Grinch Gnome Santa. Now I'm going to add just a dollop of glue to help the hat so that it'll stay folded over. And because I'm pretty impatient, I'm not the kind of person that likes to just sit there and wait for glue to dry. It's like waiting for paint to dry. So I like to have little clips handy so I can clip it and hold it in place while it finishes drying, and I can move on to the next step. Now that that's clipped, I can move on to the next step while it's drying. Thing is ready to get glued together. Now, you want to have this glued to the top part of the head, and you notice how our shape has that so that the cheeks come out to the sides, and that's really what gives it the image of the silhouette being a Grinch silhouette. I actually forgot to do that on my first one, and it just looked completely wrong. Like, you just got to get that shape right, or this just seems off. So that's why I really like doing templates. Once you figure out what works, why not share it? That's what I say. Okay, now Again, once I start using my cheaper fur, I will have already put the fur on the back side of this. But because I'm trying to be frugal with this one, I'm going to go ahead and glue my embellishments, my white trim around, and kind of hide some of the top of the head so I can use less fur. I'm just going to pinch that together. Anyway, and that's my thinking behind that. And whatever pieces I have left after I've made my gnomes, then I'll go ahead and glue onto the back there. Because you do want fur on the back, because you just think about it. When an ornament is hanging from the tree, a lot of times you can see both sides of the ornament. And even if you place it on a tin of cookies or a basket for a fruit basket or something as an embellishment, it still just really would look better if it has fur on the back. Okay, now we got our handy dull green wooden nose, which is perfect, and it just needs a little dot of glue. See how close we are to finishing. Now, as I learned from my sister's post last week, if you have little tiny crinkles in your fur, the best thing to do is to get a toothbrush and hairspray. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead and put this embellishment on. And even after I put it up there, I realized, still a little bit long. So I trimmed it off a little bit more. I don't want it to overpower the gnome. And I do like to change out where I put the embellishments. Sometimes it's right on the rim of the hat. Sometimes it's up higher. And each one can be individual. They don't have to be matchy-matchy exactly. Now it is really starting to look like Grinch. Isn't it perfect? Okay, now is when you get out the hairspray and go ahead and spray wherever it has crinkles, and then use your toothbrush and comb it out, and that will flatten out those lines. You don't want to use a hairdryer on it or a curling iron because it's artificial and it will just melt. And you'll be so sad. So definitely sacrifice a toothbrush that can be your craft toothbrush, because it will end up with all kinds of green fibers in it. And even after you get done, it's not a bad idea to trim the very outer edges just so that everything looks smooth and perfect. And then look at that. Our Grinch Santa is complete. Isn't it wonderful? And then you add that wonderful saying to it, and it just really, I think it's such a pick-me-up. It is perfect. And, you know, after you hang it, I like to hang it on the wall just to get one more last look at it to see if it needs any other, like, grooming. But then that's all there is to it. And once I finished one, I was just addicted. Like, okay, now I got to make another one and another one and another one. And that's exactly what I did. I would love to hear your thoughts. It really does help my analytics if you make a comment below, even if it's, oh, wow, that's green. It doesn't have to be anything major. Just some sort of a comment. Or even if you said, wow, or hey, I got to try, any comments. For some reason, YouTube just loves comments, and so do I. And it really helps to boost and let other people know that there is a tutorial out there for how to make Grinch Gnome Ornaments. So I do appreciate it. And thank you all to the subscribers. I cannot believe how much it's starting to pick up now here. And I'm kind of being known as the gnome lady. I do a lot of DIY projects. I don't only do gnomes, but I will say I like to do a project and then a gnome, and then a project and then a gnome. I guess that's kind of my thing. And now I started these last December. So I am just about wrapping a full year of gnomes. I think I have, my last count, 28 gnome tutorials on my DIY is my happy place YouTube channel. So that's quite a few. I did get asked to maybe do a live with how to do the shoes or how to make the shoes. So that might be something that's coming in the future. If you'd like to watch a live of how to do something, and then you could actually make shoes along with me and ask questions as we go, and we can, learn and troubleshoot and figure things out. I would love to hear that if you're interested. I always have been a little bit cautious about doing a live because I feel like, I don't want to be on there and be by myself. But if I get enough interest, I will do it. I definitely like being able to have control over my videos, so it scares me a little bit, the thought of doing a live, but I think it might be coming in the next, maybe in January, I will do that. So, thank you so much for sticking with me as we make our Grinch gnomes, and like and share this out where you can, and I will be seeing you soon. Grinch Gnome Ornaments has to be one of my favorite things, and so I love it so much. Now, just so you know, down below I have some links for the templates for the beard, for the hat, and even for this fun quote which says, maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store, maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. Dr. Seuss. Love it. Don't forget to subscribe. See ya.